Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Pringle. I am the chair of the Trans-Canada Trail Foundation, and I want to welcome you all to the launch of this new trail winter public awareness campaign. I'm joining you from Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, and acknowledge that this is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee and is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. It's now home to many diverse First Nations people, Inuit, Métis. The TCT, I think, also is a very tangible reminder to all Canadians of the presence and stewardship of the Indigenous peoples. And we're very honored to work together in the development of this great trail of trails all across Canada. So I'm super happy to be part of this launch. I've been a volunteer working to build and maintain this great trail for 20 years now. I am also the vice chair of the Center for Addiction and Mental Health Foundation, and I've spent over 12 years working to improve care and access and research for mental illness and addiction and fighting stigma. These are my two passions, and they are not unrelated, as this event demonstrates. I've spoken for years about the mental health benefits of trail. Physical benefits are obvious. We know we feel better after we go on the trail. We also know that life in this pandemic has been particularly isolating and difficult. It's had a detrimental effect on our mental health. So this campaign is to encourage people to get outside this winter, enjoy the trail safely and responsibly, and it's even more important than ever. So I'm delighted to introduce a panel who will be with us to talk about boosting your mental health this winter. So with me, Dr. Kati Kamkar, who is a clinical psychologist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, Mercedes Nickel, who is a four-time Olympic snowboarder. She is a trail champion, and she is also a mental health advocate, and Eleanor McMahon, who is the president and CEO of the Trans-Canada Trail. Just before we get to them, I do want to, as you always have to do, thank our sponsors. God bless them. Cliff Bar, who've been with us for years. They're the sponsor of the Winter Photo Challenge, and Parks Canada, our partner in government, wonderful partners. So there is a contest, there's good stuff to win, and there's a wonderful way to participate in this for all of you. And that's partly by sharing your photos on the hashtag is BLAWS2Oz, as you will see in the campaign. You can do that on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So to the panel. First of all, let's start with our wonderful president and CEO of the Trans-Canada Trail, Eleanor McMahon. She started about a year ago as the pandemic began and has been working so hard. 30 years of experience in the public, private sectors, and not-for-profit. She served as Ontario's Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport, and as well President of Treasury Board. And she's obviously a great enthusiast about trail and active transportation. So, hello, Eleanor, where are you joining us from?
Thank you so much, Valerie. Thank you for that wonderful welcome. And I want to welcome all Canadians who are joining us today. I am in Ottawa today, Valerie, which is the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. And may I also say, Valerie, a huge thank you to you for leading us in this discussion today, joining your two passions, your two great commitments and loves, the Great Trail of Canada and CAMH and the work that they do in terms of our mental health right across this country. So we're just delighted to have you with us today and leading this important conversation.
Well, tell me how you came up with this initiative, Eleanor.
Well, thanks so much, Valerie. Really, the Blaws to Oz campaign came about as a consequence of the pandemic and really was rooted in some research that we undertook last November. With Leger, which is a national polling and marketing firm, we tapped into Canadians, and we were seeing this in our network right across Canada, Valerie. We knew that trail use was up. You see it, I see it. We're fortunate enough to be out on the trail every day here in Ottawa, where we have natural abundance and beauty all around us. I'm fortunate to be able to be on the trail. I have a dog and we get out together and very much enjoy that. but it really was rooted in what we saw and what we knew. The Leger polling really ratified or edified what we knew, which is that 95% of Canadians told us that 50% of them are out on the trail more often, and that's across all age groups, and that they were out on the trail because of their physical and mental well-being. And in an outstanding statistic, 100% of Canadians aged 18 to 24 said that they're out on the trail and in trails in general so that they can enhance their mental health and well-being. And actually, none of that is terribly surprising, is it? Because in this time of social isolation where we can't travel and ordinary life and daily life has been so disrupted, being outdoors and accessing trails has become a lifeline for Canadians. And as stewards of the Great Trail of Canada, we are so honored to be able to provide that safe place to go in winter. In fact, all year round, but particularly now, because being out on the trail allows for physical distancing while combating that social isolation. And we were honored early on in the pandemic to develop national guidelines to assist our trail partners and organizations across the country. They've been in great use and a tremendous display and awareness for safe trail use, and Canadians can access them on our website, of course, thegreattrail.ca. So getting outside, important to remember to be safe and to be responsible. And of course, we know, again, that the pandemic has introduced new levels of stress into our lives. Being physically active in nature has been found, of course, to improve mental health. And I know Dr. Kamkar and Mercedes are going to talk about that from a clinician's perspective and a lived perspective. Yeah. And of course, both those things, as you noted, Valerie, are a tremendous antidote for what we're seeing now today. And, as a trails organization, we never do these things alone. Everything that we do is in partnership. And to organizations like Bell Let's Talk, which is, I know, a great passion of yours, Valerie, for helping to open up the conversation about mental health, to all of Canadians that are on the trail, to our trail partners, to those who fund our work, Valerie, and to the thousands of Canadians who donate, who contribute, to our amazing staff and volunteers, and to the politicians who are supporting us, not just in this campaign today, because there have been lots of those champions joining us, which is fantastic, but to continue to invest in trails, critically important to our mental health and to our economy. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Valerie, to introduce our other guests. And you've mentioned all of the prizes and our photo challenge contests. I'm really looking forward to the next 6 weeks in promoting mental health and awareness of the trail in that context. And I again want to thank my fellow panelists today and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Eleanor, and we'll be back to you. And I should mention that if people are watching, have questions for the panel, you can send them in. Just send them to thegreattrail.ca/winter-live. So that's where you can send in questions. And if we have a chance to, we will absolutely get to you. And I do echo Eleanor's thanks to everyone, because we have so many great partners. I was going to say, Bell Let's Talk Day was last week, and what Bell has done is extraordinary with the conversation around mental health. But I was saying we can pivot now to Bell Let's Walk, so we can get out on the trail, because we know how important that is. So now I'd love to introduce to you Dr. Kati Kamkar, who is a clinical psychologist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. She is also an associate professor with the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Toronto. Dr. Kamkar, hello, where are you?
Hello to all. I'm from Toronto. Thank you so much for having me. What a delight and honor.
Well, it is wonderful to have you here. And, I just, tell me about the significance of this initiative to you and why you feel it's important.
Then I would need to talk for exactly 10 hours here to see how significant this is, and what an incredible event. First of all, just talking about COVID-19, we have certainly seen, and the great data here from, as we know, from the Camicha surveys in partnership with Delvinia, we have been tracking the mental health and the substance use of Canadians throughout the pandemic. And so we do know we have seen the increase in the report of depressed mood, anxiety, anxiety, especially when we look at the data, over 24% of respondents indicating moderate to severe anxiety. We also know about the increased level of loneliness, and over a quarter of Canadians also struggling with and reporting binge drinking as well. And so when we look at here in terms of the loneliness and the grief and increasing depressed mood, and of course all the worries and the anxiety related to the uncertainty, we have seen that we had to create a new normal rather quite quickly when the pandemic occurred, with creating new activities, a new routine and structure, and having to create a new normal not only once but actually throughout all the stages that we had to go through, not to mention now actively as well with all the fluidity and uncertainty going on. One thing we have also noted is that participants also indicate not only being able to connect with others that they have found to be helpful, but in also going outside as well. And the studies here have been fascinating in terms of, yes, the connection between mood, but in also going outside, taking a walk in trails in a natural environment. And we do need to be creative now, because we also, here's the winter with the reduced sunlight and the daylight, not to mention the large proportion of individuals also struggle with any kind of seasonal changes as well, the mood and so on. We need to find creative ways that, yes, while we adopt the safety guidelines and physical guidelines, we're like, okay, what do we do? When we look at the great research over the years, there is an amazing connection between in terms of our mood, and then also heading outside and any walk or any exercise outdoors, in terms of reduction in depression, in anxiety, but then also in terms of mood irritability and feelings of anger. Now, also in other psychological symptoms as well, in terms of improving our overall energy, our sleep, and muscle tension, reduction in muscle tension, which is important because we all know what happens with a lot of stress and worries, multiple roles and responsibilities that we have to juggle. We become kind of bubbled up, right? And we feel the tension, a lot of pain in our neck and shoulders as well, right? So any of those walk in this healthy environment has been found to essentially help to reduce the pain and the tension. So very important for us to also remember that. Now, also, not to mention the releasing of positive hormones, happy hormones. And so what we know is that walking in natural, in nature, or any type of outdoor exercise we want to do. I always say people to be creative. You want to do your yoga, you want to do your breathing, you want to do your mindfulness. We can do it in a trail. You can also do it outside as well. It helps to release the endorphins level, dopamine level. We need those. These are our happy, positive hormones. Positive news also is that it helps to reduce what we call the stress hormone, our cortisol. So our cortisol also goes down. So an increase in the healthy, happy hormones and a reduction in our stress hormone as well. Now, one thing here also, because again, the pandemic and the isolation, great studies have also looked at the difference. Okay, do I need to engage in a solo walk, solo exercise outside, or I need to be in group? Great news is that actually it's equally beneficial. So yes, we can also go out alone, not because again of all the safety guidelines and so on. Very beneficial. The one thing also, if we look at the MRI studies, they looked at when we engage in kind of walk outside in nature, right? They actually saw brain changes in terms of the brain activity, especially around the prefrontal cortex area, a reduction in the activity in that area. Now, let's keep in mind, this is an area that is very activated when we feel down and depressed and very anxious, because we dwell, right? We dwell and we ruminate. It's a repetition of our negative thoughts, right? So that activity here around the prefrontal cortex has been shown to be lessened when we engage in those walks outside as well. Now, one thing that I also found actually very helpful, and it has also been found in studies as well, and I would love to have your input in that, is, when we say the calming sound of the nature, right? Like the sound, the tone, the volume is so appealing. It's so kind of soothing, right? And studies have also found that it helps to further reduce our stress hormone, to also reduce our blood pressure, to also reduce our And also to kind of calm our inbuilt alarm system, this flight and fight response that we have. Now, we do know with the pandemic, with this flight and fight response has been activated more often than not. That's also why our energy has been so draining and we feel fatigued. So the good news is that yes, we head outside in this natural environment, use however creativity that you want, of course, respecting the safety physical guidelines. It has been found to tremendously beneficial to your health. We're talking about mental health, but health is health. Whether we're talking about physical health and mental health, it's a head to toe, it's mind-body connection, holistic approach to care. So again, as I told you, I can be here for 10 hours, but I'm going to stop it here.
Well, no, that's wonderful. Because I mean, we know it intuitively. You feel better, but it's so interesting to hear the science, and the science is gathering more and more. I remember years ago hearing the expression forest bathing, which was a Japanese expression, and going, yeah, implying the necessity and the importance to be in nature, as you say in those sounds. But to hear what you say about the hormones and what's going on in our brains is really important. Okay, we will come back to you, Dr. Kamkar. Again, if you have questions for the panel, here, I'll do this one more time, just so if you're wanting to send an email to thegreattrail.ca /winter-live. So we'll try and get to your questions. But now I want to introduce the wonderful Mercedes Nickell, who's a 5-time national champion, 8 World Cup podiums, 4 Winter Olympic Games, in the snowboard halfpipe. She's chair of the Canada Snowboard Athletes Council and on the snowboard board of directors. She's been a Great Trail ambassador since 2016. She's got the t-shirt on, but she also has quite the story to tell about her own journey in terms of mental health and physicality. But first, let's just get a sense of where you are, Mercedes.
Thank you, Valerie. It's nice to see your face. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that I am speaking to you from Whistler today, which is on the shared unceded territory of the Squamish and Lillooet nations.
Oh, you lucky Mercedes. So tell as you can a little bit of your story and how you have a passion, as I do, for both trail and advocating for mental health, particularly because of your own journey.
Yeah, so I unfortunately had a crash at my 3rd Winter Games in Sochi, Russia, and that actually ended up taking me out of sport and pretty much life for about 2 years. And in that time, I didn't understand that I was in a depressed state until I was out of the depression. So I had time to reflect and understand that my personality was gone because I was depressed, and having sport and even like looking at a phone or reading a book was completely taken away from me. So I had to recover. And through that recovery, once I was able to speak to people, I got an understanding that, okay, what I'm feeling is what a lot of other people are going through. And I was approached. It's funny you guys talked about Bell Let's Talk Day, because I knew that I needed help. And I reached out to the Canadian Sports Centre here in British Columbia. And through the Bell relationship with the Canadian Olympic Foundation, the Canadian Olympic Committee, I was able to have a sports psychologist help me to guide me through and get better to where I was. And long story short, I did end up competing at my 4th Winter Olympic Games and landing the trick that took me out the 4 years prior. I always say it wasn't a gold medal for Canada, but for me, it was personally a gold medal moment.
Well, I mean, so unbelievably brave, having been as badly hurt as you were in Sochi, and damaged by that, as you say, the journey back to mental health, in addition to physical health, to put yourself out on the line and go back into that half pipe again and say, I'm going to another Olympics, is extraordinary.
I'm an athlete, and I'm quite stubborn and goal orientated.
Well, you've got a wonderful trail in Whistler. The Sea to Sky Trail and all through Squamish is wonderful trail. And I can say to everybody, I mean, the trail is half an hour from 80% of Canadians. It's, 24,000 or more kilometers. So it's there and accessible. So let's, if we can, maybe get all of you together and we can have a little bit of a discussion about mental health and the trail. So, let's talk about maybe, and you could talk to each other about, how this works and either, let's go with Katty, just give me an answer about frequency. I mean, Eleanor is saying, we know we can do this and get out on the trail. And that's what Blaws to Oz is all about. How often do you have to get out?
Yeah, I always, it's a very common question. First of all, I would like to say to Mercedes, it is actually a gold medal for Canada, just for you to know. And then also, what a remarkable story of strength and resilience you are, really. So my love to you, and you have everyone's love. In terms of, the frequency, I always tell people, you need to do something that works for you. It's an individualized approach to care. Fundamental, because if we go with this regimented number of times, is when people say, I didn't have the time, I couldn't make it, and they start feeling demoralized, and we end up doing nothing. Anything above 0 counts. So this is important. Anything above 0 counts, step-by-step fashion. Now, what research has found is that actually even 3 times a day for 20 to 30 minutes, natural environment.
3 times a week, I think, right?
Sorry?
3 times a week?
Exactly. 3 times a week or 3 day weekend that you can take, or 3 times a week of 20 to 30 minutes a day has been found to be beneficial. And that's important, because it's not that, I need to do every day and I cannot make it every day, so then let me not do anything altogether. No, actually a minimum of 3 times a day, 20 to 30 minutes, even if 20 minutes can make wonders. If not, I say to people, can you schedule something 4 times? If not, maybe every day, but just 5 to 10 minutes. So anything that really works for you can make a tremendous difference.
Mm-hmm. And, Eleanor, we've talked obviously about people doing this safely. How do you envision this campaign working?
Oh, it's an excellent question, and in answering it, might I just go back to Dr. Kamkar and thank her for her inspirational list, Valerie, of all the benefits, because as you said, science is so important. But Mercedes is a living example about how getting out and outside and outdoors and exercising is it can almost be a prescription. It's almost as though our physicians write us a prescription and say, you shall do this. I mean, we go to the drugstore and we get, medication for things that ail us, but we should all be prescribed, as Dr. Kamkar points out, 20 to 30 minutes a day of exercise. But you're quite right. As we felt the fear and the danger from COVID, correspondingly, people got quite anxious about going out on the trail. And our desire to do national guidelines for how to be safe was prompted by that, and prompted, Valerie, by our trail partners and our trail organizations that we work with right across the country, who got in touch with us and said, we need signage, which we did. We need directions. We need advice. And putting them on our website has made them accessible. And people are going there and they're writing us and they're thanking us, but they're also expressing gratitude, which is something that we really appreciate, because as you know so well, Valerie, the trail doesn't exist without the gratitude and the energy and the enthusiasm of thousands of Canadians. So as we get out on the trail, everybody needs to remember to carry a mask. When I go out, Valerie, in my neighborhood and I'm on the trail, it's so close by, I keep a mask in my pocket, because there are some times when I'm not near anyone, and if I can be physically distant, then I don't need to wear a mask. But I like to have one on hand in case the trail gets narrow, or I may run into someone, and I stop and put it on, and then we all feel safer, I think, and that's just a good safety precaution. And I carry a little bit of hand sanitizer in my pocket as well, that I can access when I need it. And just being careful and being attentive and being kind. I think you're hearing a lot these days about be cautious, be kind. I think being kind to ourselves And that's what this conversation is all about, because feeding our soul means going outside, but being kind to others means taking care and being mindful and being courteous.
And Mercedes, you do a lot of talking about mental health and of being an ambassador. What are the sort of things that you talk to people about? I mean, self-care has become almost jargon, but we know we have to look after ourselves. Well, what's your advice?
Yeah, so when I was recovering, I wasn't able to walk. So it really came down to setting these tiny, minuscule goals. And one of them might be getting out of bed in the morning. Sometimes it's not that easy if we don't have anything to do that day. So it's really just being accountable either to yourself or even others, making a plan. And I honestly always say I wouldn't be an Olympian without my mini goals. And those mini goals will really make things so much better. So if you're going out on a walk and maybe you say you want to start jogging, you really got to start at the bottom. You got to start walking. You got to make your way up to being able to jog. You're going to walk jog for a while, and then you're going to make it, and you're going to be jogging 5K next time you know it. So it's really about the mini goals. And if you can't be accountable to yourself, then make a plan with others, so then you're accountable to those other people as well.
Because you were talking, Eleanor, which is true. I've always, liked that idea that doctors should write prescriptions for we wouldn't need half the therapy we need, I'd say, sometimes if people could just get out on the trail. And what do they boost your immune system, lowers your blood pressure, reduces stress, improves your mood, increases the ability to focus, accelerates recovery from illness, increases energy, improves your sleep. But it's interesting, Dr. Campcart, that finally I think science was catching up with what seemed obvious and intuitive.
It's a science is you're right, catching up, but it's also, I think, that providing the knowledge, providing the education, so for people to really know, and also to really to know. A lot of times is, well, I need to feel motivated to do it, and we also know through research is, no, I need to do it, and then my motivation gets better, my energy gets better, my mood gets better. So that's why, as we always say, and also as Mercedes also just mentioned, again, it's anything above 0 counts. Just do something, one little step, and it gets better, it gets easier over time, and it's going to be rewarding. You will actually see it. Then we're going to do it more and more. And I love what Eleanor just mentioned too, which is the main reason we are even talking about this is the self-care. Self-care is so much. We can put so much into a self-care, but this is fundamental as part of our self-care and self-kindness, because now more than ever, what we need is self-compassion. Self-compassion is a relationship with the self during difficult times. And as part of self-compassion, it has many layers. The first is, I need to be able to recognize my range of thoughts, my range of emotions, so I put them into perspective. I'm able to view them objectively. I'm able to reframe my thoughts and my emotions, which we know with any walking and natural walk, we can actually do this better. Then as part of self-compassion is also the self-kindness. So I reduce my tendency to judge myself, engaging in those negative self-thoughts, negative self-labeling, which we have a tendency to do. And also viewing ourselves in a humanistic way, like, yeah, I'm a human being. There's no perfection. We make mistakes. So it's very much building here our self-kindness, self-care, and just self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, Eleanor, do you think a lot of people go, but it's cold in Canada now? Unless you've got a dog like we do,
yes,
there's resistance.
Yeah, there is. I heard somebody say, Valerie, and I thought it was kind of a catchy phrase, that we live in Canada, we're a winter nation. No one knows that better than Mercedes, and as an ex-Olympian, a winter Olympian. But there's joy in getting outside, even though it's cold. And just referencing back to Mercedes, for sure, Valerie, it's the little goals you set for yourself. So every journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And for some people, as Mercedes mentioned, for her, it was getting out of bed and starting that journey. But the saying that I heard that I liked was, there's no bad weather, only bad clothing. And that was a bit of a funny way to say, we're in Canada. But in all seriousness, it points to democratic nature of trail, Valerie, in the sense that, as you know, 80% of Canadians live within 30 minutes of the Great Trail of Canada. And it's really your choice. A pair of good walking shoes that will keep you safe in the winter conditions, a warm coat, a hat, gloves, keeping you warm and staying warm. And before you know it, 20 minutes has gone by and you've just contributed to the kind of health benefits that Dr. Kamkar spoke of. I want to go out and get on the trail right now, just after listening to that recitation of all those positive benefits. It's so encouraging and so inspiring, especially as someone who's getting older and realizing that I don't sleep as well as I used to. I need to, the weight doesn't come off as easily. So the more I go outside, the better I'm going to feel, the better I'm going to sleep. And it makes me a better human being, just as a colleague, and in the way that I show up for other people too. So the benefits are there's just a multiplicity of them.
Mercedes, do you hear that from people that, winter? Oh,
well, not really living in Whistler. Most people want to be outside. And I have been told we're all a bunch of genetic freaks out here because we do like 2 to 5 sports a day, which seems normal. But no, I do want to touch on just the fact that, yes, it is easy to stay on the couch and watch Netflix. And I will attest to wanting to do that. But I know the gift that it is to get outside and the feeling that it gives me, and being able to sleep at night because I've done that exercise makes a huge impact in the rest of your week. It's unbelievable. So I know it is hard to get off the couch, especially when it is cold, but the benefits just outweigh that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, if you have a dog, you have to. Mm-hmm. So, but Dr. Kamkar, Kathy, what if people don't have dogs?
Yeah. So, I love the example that Mercedes just mentioned, Netflix, right? And so Netflix can be an easy movie, like 3 hours. But here we're talking about you can go outside and trail for like 20 minutes. And I'll say, A to B could be walking, A to B could be 10 minutes. And then you can calculate your B to A is another 10 minutes, right? So it's like it becomes 20 minutes. What I find very helpful is always about for us to, as much as possible, flexibility is important because things can change, but to schedule it. So for example, what works for you, right? Depending on work and other responsibilities and so on. But some people would say is that, in the morning I get up, I have my breakfast, I do everything, and then I actually go outside for 30 minutes. I come back and then I resume my work and other responsibilities and so on. Other people say they want to do it during the lunchtime, or maybe sometime it could be after the work hours. Again, however your life structure is. But it's good idea to the day before or the week prior on the weekend that you schedule it. Once again, we need to be flexible. Things can change, but schedule it, because otherwise we all know what's going to happen. The day starts and it's going to be later, and that wonderful later almost would never happen. So we want to create some kind of a schedule.
Yeah, no, I guess, like anything in life, you have to, make it happen. You want to motivate people, but, the benefits, as we know, and we're all here as total, choir we're singing to, because we love trail, we love getting outside, and we know how good it makes us feel. We're not scientists like you, Katty, but we know this stuff because how we feel when we walk back inside the door. I think what you said too that's so important is we know the COVID thing, you almost have to turn off the TV, because honestly it gets so depressing looking at the stats and looking at the news. It causes you, as you say, to kind of seize up and go into your head, and it feels never ending. That idea that the frontal cortex, did you say, just kind of, stops, ruminating.
Definitely. There's a reduction in the brain activity in the prefrontal cortex area, which tends to be very active when again there is low mood, depressed mood, high anxiety, because again we tend to ruminate, we dwell. It's a repetitive negative thoughts, right? Then we all know what happened with the repetitive negative thoughts, depressive thoughts, anxious thoughts. Then we feel more demoralized and so on. So the positive thing is that with the MRI studies is this lessening of the activity that occurs. And one can simply imagine for 1 million reasons, right? We know it improves our concentration and attention. It's a healthy distraction, right? It becomes this very healthy avoidance, but in a context of a healthy distraction, I'm able to focus on other things. But also, as we say, there is one of my favorite technique that has been found over and over again that has been found to be helpful is the sensory grounding technique, right? So sensory grounding technique. I love Valerie's look here, like that. Oh, Valerie. So the sensory grounding technique is using our senses to be grounded to the reality, to the moment. So we all know with anxiety, we tend to take the helicopter and we go to the future, right? The worries and the threat and all about the future. With depression, we tend to go to the past and about memories and everything. With stress, our mind can be dwelling to so many horizons. And we lose track of the moment and present time. So for example, you might be spending 2 hours cooking and then you ate your food in like maybe 5 minutes. You were not even conscious of how it was. Or you can walk outside from one building to another. You were not even conscious of maybe the weather. So it's so easy to lose track of the moment and present time. And it's important to be, because the more we are connected to the moment and present time, the more we are grounded, the better in terms of being able to rationalize our thought, our thinking, healthier decisions, and being able to regulate our emotions. So so whenever we are able to use our senses, what do I see, hear, my body touches, and the sense of smell and taste, we are able to feel grounded. And nothing better than even when we do it in an outdoor activity, right? Let me feel the fresh air touching my face. Can I hear the birds? I love listening to birds. So for me, it's very soothing and calming. I want to hear the birds, or sometimes feeling the trees and the flowers or the nature or the snow. We're able to use our senses. And yes, now this is my reality. This is the moment, my moment.
Mindfulness.
Yes.
Are you
Yeah,
good at that,
Valerie.
Mercedes?
Yeah, no, you mentioned forest bathing earlier. And in Whistler, we had offered forest bathing during COVID times. And I was like, what is forest bathing? This sounds ridiculous. And it's exactly what Dr. Caddy just talked about. It's getting out, because I'm always on the trail and I'm like on a mission to go somewhere. Whereas when you're forest bathing, you take the time, you look at nature, you feel exactly that, like the air on your skin, you smell what you need to smell. And honestly, outside here, it smells really good, but I take it for granted every time I'm going out. So that's what forest bathing is. It's something that I don't think any of us do anymore because we're in such a rush.
Well, and so important for our kids, and so important to model this for our children, because we keep talking about how nature deficit is so enormous for our children, and they're cooped inside looking at screens, maybe not back at school. It's so important for kids.
Mm-hmm. I was out on the weekend, Valerie, and to your point about kids, and just to step back for a moment, that same Leger survey, 69% of Canadians said that their trail use was going to continue during the winter. So to the point of us being a winter nation, that was really very edifying for us, and somewhat surprising because, of course, as we know, winter weather can sometimes be an impediment. But on the weekend, I just am astounded. I don't know about colleagues who are out every day, but I'm seeing more and more people out now. And whether it's because they really want to get outside, which is, I think, what we're discussing today because of its enormous benefits, And with their children. I was walking on the trail yesterday, which goes through a park, and the city of Ottawa has put up some skating rinks there. And there were plenty of young families there and young children, kids building snowmen and just having a really great time. And I thought, oh, isn't that great? Great for the parents, great for these kids. Healthy habits for life are so important. And what a gift we give to our kids when we model that kind of behavior and show them what it's like to be outside. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. And when we were growing up, Valerie, goodness me, we spent all of our time outside. And I know that things were different then, but I can remember going to the skating rink and the park and with my siblings coming home at lunch, eating. And of course, I was always the last one at the table because I was the chatty Cathy of the group. But I would finish my lunch, lace up my skates, and off I would go to the park. And so to your point about bringing kids along for the ride, our winter campaign, incidentally, has some great family-friendly activities associated with it. But also being out on the weekend, I just saw those, and it just made me smile because I thought, how great for those kids, how great for their parents. Parents are getting a dose of fresh air and sunshine, and the kids the same. And we know that when they get home, they're probably going to have a 3-hour nap and feel fantastic. And that just is so great for their parents as well. So what a gift to give to our kids to be outside. And, so fortunate that we have trails to give us that opportunity.
I do love the campaign that it's Blas to Oz, because it also is an opportunity for families to try a new sport. So, I mean, cross-country skiing is an opportunity to do on the trail, at least in Whistler. And I'm sure some of the trails might be like, I've seen some trails covered in ice where you can skate down them. So your Blas to Oz could be Blas to Giggles. Who knows, when you're trying something new.
I love that 3-hour nap that you mentioned, Eleanor. But it also, when we look at the CAMH findings in terms of anxiety levels throughout the pandemic, what we have found is that anxiety levels were very high springtime and by late fall, and much lower during summertime. Much lower during summertime, very high springtime, and very high by, of course, fall and end of fall, but much, much lower throughout the summertime. Obviously, variety of hypotheses in regards to that, but clearly we know in terms of outdoor, being able to, again, nature, the warmer weather, it's obviously all of that that thing that, again, we want to maintain now during the winter time. So anything, again, that we are able to do, again, above zero, anything does count and make a tremendous difference.
Okay, we're getting almost to the end of this. As I said, I'm in Niagara, so my favorite bit of trail, with this beautiful Trans-Canada Trail all along the Niagara riverfront, which is great. And I go with George and Jake, who are not very good dogs, particularly Jake. But I mean, you just breathe. So anyway, I just wanted to check on your favorite bits of trail. Eleanor.
Oh gosh, Valerie, do I have to mention just one? That's really hard.
I know it is hard.
Because everyone's public health guidance these days, Valerie, of course, is to stay close to home. I'm going to pick one that's really close to my house, and by close, I'm going to say it's about a 15-minute walk, and it's a bit of an uphill, which gives me some exercise, which I'm not fit and young like Mercedes, so I need to stay as fit as I can. And the dog helps move me along. But Rockcliffe Park, which has a beautiful trail through the woods, allows a bit of forest bathing if I want, which is fantastic in the trees and in the sunshine, and even when it's not a sunny day. And I can look out, Valerie, over the Ottawa River and across to Quebec. It brings me peace. It brings me joy. And so that Rockcliffe Park section of my walk, and it's one of the beauties of living in Ottawa, that's my favorite trail in the moment.
Cathy?
I'm not sure that in terms of, let's say, naming any specific ones, because there are just so many, but I am very, very fortunate because I live in Toronto. There are just so many trails all around, like from Mass Trail to Humber River, a trail to the Disa. I mean, again, I can go the Rouge Valley ones. I can go on and on and on about the number of ones. I really enjoy a lot of them. And so I also enjoy including the diversity as well. well. So in terms of trying one trail and then also another one. But that's again the beauty of living somewhere where, again, just so many ones that I can explore again.
And then here, we're all jealous of you, Mercedes.
Yeah.
What if we were saying, gee, I'm in Whistler. What's my favorite trail?
I know. I'm lucky that I literally live steps away from the Sea to Sky Trail. And you might think that I would get sick of it, but it wraps around Lost Lake, and that's where I am. And the views change daily because the weather changes daily, but I'm lucky to be able to jog around it. Right now, I can cross country ski around it, and I can walk in the snow. And it's snowing right now, so I'll probably head out in a little bit.
It just sounds wonderful. And I know the people who helped build that trail, so I have fond memories of it. Anyway, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Mercedes. I'm just going to wrap up here by just getting a final word, if I could, from Eleanor, obviously about the trail, getting people involved. We want people to donate. I wouldn't be a good foundation chair if I didn't say, people, we need support. But just your final thoughts on what you hope to achieve.
Oh, thank you so much, Valerie. Well, I would say that one of the things that we didn't touch on so much today, so maybe I will now just ever so briefly, is this notion that we're not alone. That even though we may be isolated, and I live on my own. So one of the great things for me about getting out is to see my neighbors and to just exchange a smile and a wave and a how are you with them is really a gift and brings me joy. And that comes from being outside. So that ends my social isolation. So this campaign is really about all of us. And so we want to invite everyone to go to our website where, yes, Valerie, they can absolutely donate, because this trail simply doesn't happen without donations and philanthropic support. So we're grateful for that. And to all of our donors, go to thegreattrail.ca winter mental health for lots of information and ideas. Valerie, you spoke about the winter photo challenge. On that page, we have a wonderful blog and tips for beating the winter blues and blahs written by Dr. Kamkar. But the wonderful Melissa Waterman has talked to us about her experience of how walking on the trail during the pandemic has brought her joy. Just all kinds of things there. Jack.org, the fabulous partnership we have with them. Safe winter tips from Adventure Smart. And I want to give a shout out to OK Me, started by our wonderful colleague, Michael Goodyear. Sales of these pins, which are really about inspiring a ripple of change in how we talk about mental illness. And you wear this pin and it just shows to everyone that you are safe. It's a safe space to talk about mental health and mental wellness. And so a shout out to Michael, and OK Me is an important part of our campaign this year. Thank you, Valerie.
Perfect. I'm wearing my OK Me button myself. So that ends our discussion today. If that hasn't inspired you to get out, I don't know what will, but there's nothing more magnificent. This great trail is the greatest project in the history of the world. And we need it more than ever now in these COVID times. So thanks so much for being with us. Please send us photographs. Go to our website and learn how to participate and donate. And thanks so much for being with us today. Cheers. Participate and donate. And thanks so much for being with us today. Cheers.
Come on home, come on back, give it up. It was a flashback to my life.
for you. Tell me how to beat your game, I don't know what's cool to do.